the beginning, maybe before you went to prison, and
Yeah,
uh,
when I was 4 years old. How about that?
okay, we won't talk about those first years.
Yeah, we'll just do it.
Maybe like you were living a normal life. All of a sudden, you saw a bank, you decided to rob it, and you went to prison. I don't, just
Yeah, I wasn't good enough to rob a bank. Did my crime kind of under, a little differently. But
Hey, Eric, I just want to say hi to Eric and Cemetery Adventures out there. Thanks for joining in, guys, and ask questions anytime you want. Okay.
so yeah, I at the age of 4, just real quick, my dad died. My mom remarried 3 times after that, and didn't have a lot of direction per se. So when I was 20, I joined the Army and took off, left Michigan where I grew up at, and ended up in Germany, met my kid's father, and that's how I ended up here in New Mexico. We both got out of the service about the same time, and I arrived here. So got married, had 4 kids over quite a long span of probably 12 years, and for 15 years lived kind of a normal life. In the service, drank a lot of alcohol like most of the people in the service do. And
Sure.
um, it was kind of the go-to. Well, for me it was anyway. But during the years of my married life, was church going on the PTA, and I think I was on the board at my daughter's charter school.
Sounds
And
all American to me. How the hell did you end up in prison?
well, I had my own business, and then when I got divorced, I had no child support, and with 4 kids, and the economy crashed, and started working for a company, was struggling, asked for child support, didn't get it, and I did embezzle, and so went to prison. Um,
How,
and
how, Before you went to prison, I mean, can you talk about maybe how you got caught? Did you get locked up while you were fighting your case? Did
so
they let you out
funny
for? Did
enough,
you get out on bail? Were you scared? All that kind of stuff.
it was interesting. I had a near-death experience. I lost a lot of my intestines, my right colon, and I had a come to Jesus moment at that point, and thought, during that time that I was a week in the hospital at the VA hospital, and I was terrified, thinking somebody's going to get into the bookkeeping there and find what I was doing, and tried to get back out and clean up the books, and I stopped doing what I was doing, and actually got another job and left that company. After I left the company, they were audited, and what I had done was found after I left during an audit. And so, at the time that I was arrested, it was in 2014, and it took 3 years to actually, before I went and sentenced. But that was 9 years ago, and I pretty much have not been living for 9 years, truthfully. It's hard to go back out. A lot of people said you should leave New Mexico, you should, go somewhere else. But my adult children live here, so I'm not going to, leave this state. But
Why did they tell you that you should leave?
the company that I embezzled, they pretty much run the city, so they're connected to everybody here. And when I say that, I mean that literally. It's no joke. So it's
This
been.
is not a conspiracy theory. This stuff really exists.
It does, and I'm probably not going to pop off more on that because
Yeah, we don't want. Yeah, no. Yeah.
not gonna, not going to say too much more about that. So that was hard. That was really hard. I believe that was, I tried to get jobs during the 2014 and 2017 when I was sentenced, and it was, as you know, prior, after, it's hard to work. So I did go to Sedona, Arizona, and worked in Sedona during those 3 years. And I would come back taking trains on the weekends to be with my kids, work in Sedona during the week, just to be able to work prior to being sentenced. Because I have a great work ethic. It just was difficult to provide for 4 kids with no child support on my own. And my alcohol abuse was extreme during that time because I had a huge amount of guilt. So the more that I stole, the more that I drank, and the more that I drank, the more that it was just like a continual like hamster wheel, and I was the hamster, and my head was not okay with it. Like I knew what I was doing was wrong, and it just spiraled and spiraled and spiraled. And yeah, so
I think most of us who've got caught or went to jail or prison, we knew what we were doing was wrong, yet we still did it. We justified it, or said, oh, they owe us, or I'm not really stealing from them, or I'm not really hurting someone. Somebody else was going to do it, why not me? All those kind of reasoning, right?
I knew it had happened, that I was being caught, that it had not been addressed. And the owner of the business met me at a restaurant. Little did I know he was wired up. I mean, logically I probably knew, but I didn't. Honestly, I'm an insane open book person. So he was trying to circle the whole situation. And I finally just said to him, like, let's just stop the circling. Like, let's just have the conversation. And I kind of just said to him, like, can you not arrest me in front of my youngest child? And I said, let's just cut to the chase. Like, I know And so I was not in denial about what I did. I was very, I took the bullet. It's one thing that I will do is I admit what I have done. I'm not proud of it.
A lot of people won't do that. There's people they in prison when I was in there, they're all innocent. I was one of the few guilty people in there. A lot of people they never take the accountability, never accept that they did something wrong.
You know what? I had to, because it's the only way I could survive. I was like, you know what? And when I went to prison, when I was sentenced, I was like, okay.
How long did you get? How long was the sentence?
My sentence was 9 years, all suspended but 20 months. And by the time I started and finished, it was 10 months that I did time. And I went into prison because I had spiraled, and I was damaging my children. My children were damaged. In between the 3 years from 2014 to 2017, when I talk about my alcohol spiraling out of control, I did a suicide attempt. My oldest son had to drive me to the VA. I was in Ward 7, which is your mental ward. I was damaging my kids. I was damaging my family. I take full responsibility and accountability for what I've done. And I'll tell you, I've been on the ground. I've been sobbing. I've had a lot of deep, dark depression, mental health issues, and I own every last one of them. I took a lot of accountability, and the people that I took money from will never know that. I'm not allowed to have any communication with them, but it's not okay what I did. And when I got in there, I actually thanked God for putting me in prison because I needed to be held accountable. And I had 3 things that I wrote a lot of things on paper when I went in. I was like, I'm going to, pray every day. I'm going to try and better myself every day, and I'm going to try and help other people every day, some way, shape, or form. And I needed to do that in order to heal. And
Can I ask what level of prison you went to? And I know it was in New Mexico, and I don't know how many levels they have for the women's prison. Can you maybe talk about that?
So I'm not completely. I think it was like level 1, level 2. I ended up at Springer. You go through your transition of going to the jail, and then I was there for quite a while, longer than normal, before I was sent, like 5 weeks, and then went to Grants Women's Prison, which is where the higher crime people stay, and that's where they decide where you're going to go. Now, this was interesting. So I've been on mental, what do I want to say, depression medication, anxiety medication, as long as I can remember. I've had, it's in my family tree. Thank you. Yeah. So when I got there, I was on Zoloft. You go in, and I'm sure you realize you get there and your medication doesn't come your way right away. It takes a few weeks before you get your medication. So you're cold turkey off of that, which
Sure.
Everybody, people who have substance abuse problems are going through withdrawals from that. There's a whole withdrawal from your mental health medication as well. And
I know that by personal. I know that. Yeah.
I don't think people in society realize to this extent if they're not taking those medications. And I had all my records. I knew when I was going. I knew the day I was being sentenced, so everything was prepared and being sent. But we're not real people, so it doesn't really matter to everybody out there. But there's and that probably went through 3 or 4 of those withdrawals, and I was told at Western, and I think there's a lot of little games that maybe correctional officers and that they play with you just to mess with you.
No, not them. They're such.
It's really possible. So I was told that I was not allowed to go to the level 1, level 2 if I was on my mental health medication.
I've actually heard that because of you could sell your drugs. That they're worried about you bringing contraband in, or
so
I don't think they really care about your mental health. So
I went off of them, of course, another really tough time, just so I could go to the level 1, level 2, because I'm gonna tell you straight up, I was scared. I've not been around, a lot of things in my life. I've not seen fights, and I saw extreme fights that to this day are, mess with my head. And for whatever reason, I walked into a lot of fights. Wherever I was, those fights happened right in front of me. And,
So there's fights in women's prison. Someone I've talked to some women, they say we're not like the men's prisons. We don't have the gangs and all that, but they do tell me the fights are usually amongst each other over jealousy of another woman. Is that kind of true? Or
I mean, for sure, jealousy, but it could also just be just because people don't like each other, or just, even a TV program or something was just said wrong. And, we were in open bay pods, and there was overcrowding when I was there. So I think there was maybe supposed to be 40 people in these pods, and there was at least 80 to 100.
Ooh.
And supposedly there's supposed to be a correctional officer in there. There wasn't.
no.
No. And, yeah. And like the train wreck or a car accident that you're not supposed to watch, but you look and you look and you look. And so, I watched, and I probably never should have, but those are in my head, and they're going to be in my head till I'm no longer on this earth. And so my kids, I've got still a couple in the house, but, that pounding or whatever that, they smack something, that's never going to be okay with me. And it happens to this day.
Yeah.
A door shut.
You know what still drives me like I get is when I hear this. You remember that sound?
Yeah, but we didn't really have a lot of that because we had just a door opening to a big, huge, wide open,
Oh, right. So they make a big entrance into the room.
Yeah.
Ladies, stand up for count, kind of thing.
Yeah. So going to eat in the cafeteria, and every day somebody else has got a black eye. And so, but yeah.
So I've done a few shows with some other ladies that have done prison time, and I'll plug their channels. There's Fed Phoenix. Check out her channel, and Angie Talks Prison. These are ladies I came on my show before they went to prison. Now they're out and they have their own prison channels. But we did a special show about women getting raped in prison and getting fondled and getting just treated like treated really bad by the male guards, even by the women guards, not caring, looking the other way. That's in the federal prison system. What about the state prison system? Is that going on there too?
So when I got there was some weird stuff that had gone on, and I was not part of it, but evidently they'd taken a lot of the females back from Springer to Grants. And this is what I was told. I was not there when this supposedly happened, so I'm not sure. But, drugs go in body cavities, right? My kids were coming a lot to visit me. They came probably every other weekend, a 3-hour drive each way. And I have never done drugs. It's not part of my world. It just wasn't. Alcohol was my drug of choice. So outside of the prison, evidently drops happened, right?
Right.
So one day, my kids had just visited. I come back. I'm going to go the bathroom, washing my hands, and somebody comes up and they're like, so is it true people been lining up outside to see you? And I'm like, for what? You know, are your body right? I'm like, yeah. So somehow somebody thought that my kids had done a drop. First of all, that's just not the world. And strangely enough, just to toss this out there, my ex-husband's a cop. So
wow. Now, was he your ex-husband while you were in prison? Or, I mean, had you divorced before prison or after hearing?
We divorced in 2006. I didn't go to prison until 2017. So, but that just wasn't our world. So I wasn't doing drugs. So, but they thought that they were coming in. So right as I got to that pod, maybe 3 or 4 weeks before, I was told by the girl in the bunk bed next to me that people thought that some of these women in there had drugs in their body cavities, and they were dragging them into the showers and basically searching their body cavities and beating them up. So, you know, to hear that they thought that I had a drop, just let me say I was a little terrified, to say the least. But luckily, some of the girls had kind of, I bonded with a few of them, and they took me under their wing and said she doesn't have anything. So, but I can definitely say I was shook for a few hours that day. Not gonna lie, but I had one of the things that I think helped me. I've drawn since I was really young. And when I was in Grants, the transition between Grants and Springer, I met somebody who had lost their child. It was around Easter. I had been really upset missing my kids on Easter Day. And the girl next to me was starting to cry really hard. And evidently her child had been killed while she was in prison. So I thought, okay, well, suck it up, Bonnie. You know, it's not so bad. You don't lose your kid. So I drew, you know, on, did you guys have the handkerchiefs, the paños, where people drew on the paños?
Handkerchiefs?
Yeah, people would draw on a handkerchief. You'd soak it in water with sugar, and then you'd flatten it out, and it would harden. And then you would draw with a pencil on it. And so I would sketch from a photo.
Oh.
And so I would draw for anybody who lost a child. I would just do that. But that was kind of also my trade in there, that I would draw pictures so I could get commissary.
I was in the feds, and they have arts and crafts rooms, and you can order stuff from outside. So I guess, yeah. But I have been to jails, and I remember things like that in the jails, and you know.
Yeah, I did murals too on the prison walls. So my grandpa used to say, yeah, my grandpa was always like, "Oh, you're going to be a great artist someday." And you know, he passed away a lot of years ago, and I'm thinking, oh, he would have been real happy about me doing those murals in prison.
You know, we need the Wings Works building we have there on Central Avenue.
Yeah,
we have a sign up, but the glass. I don't know if you've been there yet, but the glass. Everybody else has a sign on their glass. We have nothing. So we could really use you to paint on that window.